Hello again, and welcome to another reading of Beyond the Story, the 10-year book or narrative of Bangtan Sonyeondan, or BTS. We are now in the final chapter, chapter 7, of this incredible story of how 7 young men started in the South Korean music industry over a decade ago, where they had to overcome so many obstacles and difficulties. And those challenges, some of them still continue up to now. But these feisty, never say die attitude, courageous, and very humble 7 young men triumphed over their adversities. So it's a very inspirational story. So we will continue with chapter 7. I hope you stick around. I want to acknowledge our background music, beautiful instrumental of BTS songs by Do Piano. Okay. Subheading BTS Universe. The global BTS sensation sparked during the pandemic raged on beyond the summers of 2020 and 2021 into fall of that latter year. Even bigger things were happening around the end. On September 20, 2021, BTS spoke for the youth and future generations at the United Nations for the SDG Moment event with Sustainable Development Goals. And a few days later, on September 24, released My Universe, their collaboration with Coldplay. This song also went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Not only had BTS become artists who could collaborate with veritable living legends like Coldplay, they had also the status to be appointed special presidential envoy for future generations and culture by the Korean president and speak of hope and vision for young people everywhere at the United Nations. BTS no longer needed any adjectives or other qualifiers to be identified. The juxtaposition of the 3 letters of their name being powerful enough now. Their smallest throwaway comment on V Live, now Weverse Live, was enough to send a ripple through the Korean press and into overseas newsrooms. The UN event and collaboration with Coldplay were meaningful events to them, in that beyond the public's response to their work, these 2 things had helped them find meaning in the work that they were doing after the pandemic period of growing as artists and people. Chris Martin is one of the most sincere overseas artists I've ever met. RM shares his impression of the lead singer of Coldplay and working on My Universe with him. We run into several kinds of artists overseas. There's the kind who are like, "Oh, you guys are famous these days, good job, I guess. Go for it," and seem to look down on us a little. And those who are all business and go, "I really want to do a song with you." And there's a third category of people or oddly positioned between those two. But Chris Martin was none of these three. He was an exception. RM. RM. RM's very astute, and so are all the 6 other BTS members. They all can suss, people who are not genuine or not sincere, especially Taeyang and Jin. Also Sugar. I mean, and Hope. Well, all of them, Hobie, Jimin, and Jungkook. They can tell, but RM especially. I think he knows who are the people who are sincere. So, and Chris Martin, really, I admire Chris Martin and Coldplay, the team. They have shown that they do care about BTS, and they're quite protective of them. They've shown it in a lot of interviews where some interviewers honestly, in a subtle, sometimes underhanded way, try to put down BTS. And Coldplay, they're not having it. And they, in a very polite way, they correct the interviewers and, give their firm stance on how much they respect BTS, and even say how BTS are more prolific than them. And they've produced so many songs and, just have done so much in the span of their career, in the 10 years. More so even, they say, than, themselves than Coldplay. So I really respect Chris Martin for all the interviews he's given where he defends BTS. The members of BTS had always enjoyed Coldplay's music, with Jin even naming them as his favorite group. V also looked up to Chris Martin as a role model. When Coldplay proposed to collaborate on My Universe, BTS could not say no. But the actual collaboration process with Martin exceeded the members' expectations. RM adds to his impressions. It was the pandemic, but he insisted on coming, saying he had never collaborated on anything virtually. He said, "So you guys can't come? Then I'll go to you." Just like that. We were so surprised. You had to go through quarantine when you entered Korea back then, and that would have been a significant time commitment for him. But he really came, and when we finally got to meet after all that, he was much more down to earth than we'd expected. Jungkook was also deeply shocked by Martin's attitude. He describes it as a chance to rethink his attitude as an artist. I was so bowled over when he said he would come to Korea himself to direct the vocals. I thought, wow, think of how much you'd have to love music to do that. Have I ever put that much passion into something myself? Not only that, Martin also rehearsed and performed with the members for the BTS Permission to Dance on Stage LA concert, dedicating himself to every aspect of the collaboration. The next year, in 2022, Coldplay also participated in Jin's solo song, The Astronaut, and Jin flew to Buenos Aires in Argentina to take the stage with Coldplay on their Music of the Spheres world tour to sing this song. Regarding Martin's influence on him, Jimin says, He was already a legend, but still doing all this for us. That positivity was so overwhelming. And since he has so much more seniority in the music industry, we learned a lot from him. Things like what attitude to have as artists when approaching fans. He's a great singer, of course, but it was also the way he was on stage and how he felt toward the members of his band that was so awesome. In a conversation between BTS and Chris Martin on some original YouTube content, RM mentions that he sometimes asks himself, can a song like this change the world? BTS were thinking about what meaning their artistry might have in the world, and their encounter with Martin would become one of the things that helped them understand the possibilities more. On the reason why they spoke of such things then, RM says, this music, I wanted to believe that the music in this file would be valid for a long time. But the world changes so fast that I kept thinking, what if it's thrown away in just a year or two? So I switched to the side of trying to be more universal and long-lasting. My music can be meaningful to someone or not, but I thought it would be good if it were more, just a little more timeless. If working with Chris Martin had been an opportunity for them to think about their attitude as artists, the UN event on the Sustainable Development Goals was a chance to consider the thoughts on world issues as young people living through the current era. In their presentation, they talked of the need to become not the lost generation that had missed many opportunities for growth and progress, but the welcome generation that believes in possibility and hope. Discussing environmental issues and urging the public to get vaccinated for COVID-19. Jungkook has this to say about this visit to the United Nations that came 3 years after their first. It was a lot of pressure, to be honest, Jungkook laughs. A great experience, and it's not like you get to stand at that podium just because you want to. I was mostly thinking, my thoughts could just be pretty ordinary. Is it right for me to take this opportunity just because it's given to me? But Jungkook's words precisely show how there were things only BTS could do, and what they learned from this experience. Jin explains their approach to the presentation. We did not try anything fancy. Our wish was just that people would become more interested in these issues through us, that they were issues with high barriers of entry, and maybe we could help make it easier to talk about them. The fact that they were the hottest idol group in the world, were in a position to collaborate with Coldplay, and were invited to talk at the UN, meant the group could become an entry point to pretty much anything in the world. The UN presentation was an example of how BTS might use their influence for positive purposes. On this, Suga says, it's a lot of pressure to speak for the youth of the whole world. How could we possibly do that? We also live very differently from the great majority of youth around the globe. I hadn't thought about climate change or the environment a lot. My thoughts were just a vague, oh, technology will solve that someday. But I learned these were very serious problems. Then wouldn't I be able to help people become more familiar with them? So if people can get even a little more interested in these issues through us, didn't our fame make it our responsibility to take that on? Regarding his feelings as he prepared for the presentation, Jimin says, I did feel a little strange, maybe because it had been so long since the onset of the pandemic, but there were things where I was like, whatever, and had to ignore, which made me pay less attention to the many things of the world. But in preparing for the speech, I was quite shocked that people even younger than were extremely interested in environmental issues. The material made me think, really? And I looked things up on the internet, and it actually really surprised me. I was embarrassed for myself. Here are these other youth who are working so hard to make all of our lives better. How could I just coast like this when everything we have now was made possible by someone else? It was honestly a shock, and I am grateful for it. The Permission to Dance performance, where BTS shows the UN General Assembly and other parts of the UN headquarters building, was a chance to show their inner growth. Not only was performing within the UN headquarters a rare occasion, but the process of filming it was also not easy, because they needed to film it at night when the General Assembly Hall was empty. BTS had to go straight to work as soon as they landed at the airport. The shooting schedule continued from 1 a.m. until morning. On the second day, they mostly did outdoor shoots, but there were many rules to follow regarding disease prevention. Of the difficulties they had during the shoot, Jimin says, "It was not a great shooting environment, to be honest. The microphone kept going out mid-song, and we had to adhere to strict COVID-19 rules, which meant we were not even allowed to drink water inside. So we worried a lot about how it would come out in the end. But the next day, when we were shooting outside with the dancers, it was really fun. Dancers looked so cheerful that I felt cheered up myself. It was a big lift, even when the song was our song." Jimin laughs. The UN performance was BTS's first overseas stage since the pandemic began, and that alone was reason enough for the members to enjoy this experience. They were already trained to focus on the fun of a performance rather than the constraints of their environment. As J-Hope says, "It was clear what we wanted to show in that performance, and we had faith in that if we followed the schedule and did well in the shoot, a really nice picture would emerge. So we worked very hard, each in our different parts, to capture on film the best footage we can. I think we managed to come up with good results because we knew all too well the significance of this performance." As implied in J-Hope's attitude, BTS had grown into artists who thought deeply of what they wanted to convey in their work and knew what they had to do to achieve the best possible results. Having reached a point where their every move affected the direction of the global music industry, BTS knew how they needed to act in accordance to such influence. On their YouTube channel, the United Nations posted the Permission to Dance performance and wrote this in their caption: "K-pop sensations BTS performed their hit song Permission to Dance in a video produced at the United Nations. The video accompanies the band's remarks at the SDG moments and is meant to draw their audience's attention to the importance of keeping the promise of the Sustainable Development Goals and to inspire action." In the video, the members of BTS sing and dance in the General Assembly Hall and the park outside the building. Realizing the almost surreal content of this caption as they use their influence for the sake of raising awareness on important issues, a laudable use of their status as sensations. And just when they had reached a new high in just how sensational they were, the world finally began opening up again. And we stop there. Again, this is a special day because it is Sugar's birthday. So once again, happy, happy, happy birthday, Sugar, or as we fondly call him, Yoongi. May you have a wonderful, wonderful day and hope you find a time to celebrate. Because we, Army, who love you, are celebrating your birthday. And for those of you who have stuck around to listen to Beyond the Story, thank you very much. Until next time, this is Beyond 1800 with BTS. Have a wonderful day.